Hi everybody. Today we're going to talk about coordinate grids. You might also hear these called coordinate planes, coordinate graphs, or Cartesian grids, Cartesian planes, or Cartesian graphs. Our texts use the words coordinate grid, so that's what I'm going to use in this video. First, we just have to talk about what does a coordinate grid look like. Well, it's made up of two axes. As you can see, if there is more than one axis, then they're called axes. And these axes divide a space, usually on a piece of graph paper, into four quadrants. Quadrant 1, Quadrant 2, Quadrant 3, and Quadrant 4. The way that these are numbered can feel a little confusing because they go in a counterclockwise direction. So we start up here in the upper right with Quadrant 1, and then move around counterclockwise to name the other 3, 2, 3, and 4. Also, notice that at the end of all of the axes, there are arrows, and that's just to indicate that these lines could continue to go on for infinity in any of those directions. The next thing to know about a coordinate grid is what these axes are called. The horizontal axis is called the x-axis, and the vertical one is called the y-axis. And the way that I always remember the difference between the two is that this x-axis, if you look at this arrow here, it looks like 1/2 of an x. So that's how I remember that that's the x-axis. And the y-axis, this vertical part of the y-axis here, looks like it could be the base of a big letter Y. So that's how I remember that the vertical one is the y-axis and the horizontal one is the x-axis. Another thing that you'll need to know about a coordinate grid has to do with the numbers. So the numbers, if you notice, are right on the lines themselves, not on the space in between the lines. And that's important because, as you'll see when we're giving directions to a point, we want the point to be on a spot where two lines intersect. And so for that to be true, we need the numbers to be right on the lines. You'll also notice that the numbers increase as they go towards the right and also increase as they go up. And yes, there are negative numbers also on the coordinate grid. The axes, if you look carefully, you can see it would be 0. So if this was -1 right here, and this was +1 right here, the space in between, this line here, would be 0. So the axis, the y-axis, is 0. And same thing for the x-axis. If you see that this is 1, and this would be -1, then this x-axis here would be 0.